Graziano, Independent Press. What are you planning on doing about the corrupt elections that put you in office?
I'm sorry? Who are you with?
I'm an independent journalist. I was at the 8063 credentialing committee where they allowed hundreds of corrupted votes, including votes from Republicans and outside the district, to go to delegates that were supporting you. What are your plans to do about that for the next elections?
Well, I've committed to forming a task force within the first 100 days.
What do you want that task force to do? What are your ideas?
Let me respond.
Go ahead.
To reform the ADEMS process, to ensure that it engages as many Democrats in our state as we possibly can.
Okay, so what actually concretely does that mean? What do you want them to do?
Well, I think it's to address issues connected to locations, the ways in which we vote, what campaigning looks like, to ensure that we have a selective ADEMS delegates that are reflective of our state.
But in terms of concrete things, do you have any plans? Do you plan on implementing more PDI? Do you think the PDI should be used in everything?
So sorry, here's our plan for the first 100 days. Everything's right here. We got to get actually moving around. So sorry.
I'm going to guess the plan for the first 100 days doesn't address this, but thank you.
In there. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everybody. That was Rusty Hicks, the new chair of the California Democratic Party. Were you impressed? I wasn't impressed, and neither were my guests. That was shot by John Graziano, who's above me here. We have Pate, who's here with us tonight, and we have Desiree Berg, who's with us. They are three real amazing activists. They were all at the California Dem Convention this last weekend, and it was quite a shit show, and they're going to talk to you all about that. And of course, Laura Livengood is here, and she's going to drive this discussion because I don't live in California. I'm dealing with the Oregon shit show. So you guys are going to talk about the California one. Just to give my Oregonian friends an idea of the difference, in Oregon, there are 166 state central committee members. In California, there are more than 3,000. So if you think Oregon has problems with organization and corruption, just imagine that times 30, right? It's pretty ridiculous. And there was a lot to talk about. I want to thank you all for joining us. It's really nice to have the four of you here from California to discuss this. I appreciate all of your journalism and your efforts there as activists, and we're going to look at a lot of your footage. John, I want to just turn it over to you, and then I'm going to let Laura drive the conversation. But how the hell did Rusty Hicks become the chair? I thought it was supposed to be Kimberly Ellis.
Well, Rusty not only won the election, he won it by a mile. He got over 50% on the first ballot, which meant we didn't have to have a second ballot.
Jeez.
There are a lot of ways that Rusty won this election, but including strong-arming the rank and file of the unions that were supporting him. And we can talk a little bit more about that later. But what I was trying to talk to him about was just the open and flagrant corruption that went on in the ADEMS elections. Now, these are elections that elect a third of the voting delegates in the California Democratic Party. Keep that in mind. A third of the voting delegates, only a third, are allowed to come from the grassroots. But that's not enough power for people like Anthony Rendon. And what he did, bust in people from outside the district. He bust in non-citizens. He bust in non-Democrats, which is both of those are supposed to be not allowed. He actually had Republicans voting in this election. And the person who was raising the issue, Maria Estrada, actually had her name left off the ballot.
Off the e-board ballot.
Which I'm sure was just an innocent oversight on their part. And so we heard the news that Rusty had won, and it was pretty disappointing. I mean, a lot of the rank and file were just in the party were pulling for Kimberly. And he came over and started schmoozing with the press, and I was in the press trying to figure out how to operate Tina's camera.
Right.
And Yeah. And all of a sudden I see this guy coming around and he's just shaking hands. Hey, I'm Rusty Hicks. How you doing? Blah, 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 with all, these professional reporters. Not one of them asked him a question.
No.
Nobody just said, hey, Rusty, good to meet you. I hope I get access later, that kind of thing.
Right.
And then he was walking past, and I was just like, well, I can't let him just leave. So I pulled out my phone, and you saw the rest. A couple of things I do want to point out. One is the epic side eye that I got from Rusty when I identified myself as an independent journalist. Did you all catch that?
I'm going to pull it up. I was,
Who
Right,
is
but that
this?
side eye was that someone specifically. It was at his handler.
Yeah.
That was at his
Right.
handler. That was the get me the fuck out of here
Right.
Yeah.
from Rusty.
Right.
Because he does not want to talk.
He didn't want any tough questions.
Yeah, and he knew this was going to be a tough question because
Yeah.
he was pretending he didn't hear me, but he heard me when I asked him, how are you going to deal with the corrupt elections that helped put you in office?
Mm-hmm.
Because all of the people that were seated in the elections that weren't overturned and were successful in rigging it for the establishment and for people like Anthony Rendon and Wendy Carrillo, all of those people voted for Rusty.
Yeah.
And
there's the connections with the SEIU too. People need to keep in mind that Rusty Hicks is a union boss, and SEIU has a lot of power in the state of California. And they have a lot of delegates. They have a lot of folks that are very involved in politics, especially here in Southern California. Mm-hmm. And so they absolutely were telling their delegates that they had to support Rusty Hicks and that there were going to be problems if they didn't. So this is sort of tangential to CalDem. It's not the CADEM people who are doing this. Well, what?
So I'll be the one that has no career, so I don't care about getting sued or fired. But so I personally heard from a few people that union members were threatened if they voted for Ellis. They would lose their position within the union.
Yep.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm saying within the union, but it's I think that's separate or tangential to CalDem. This wasn't coming from the California
Well, there were
Democratic
delegates.
Party.
A lot of these delegates were SEIU members.
Right.
And I know
exactly.
for a fact that one person that we all know who will just leave anonymous was told that her promotion to shop steward was on hold because she was supporting Kimberly Ellis.
And what is SEIU? Can you clarify that for the record?
Service Employees International Union.
Oh my God.
It's a union that the state workers
is a big one,
right?
Belong to.
Can I just show you all? Here's Rusty's face, and basically he's saying "fuck you" because labor won me. But that's basically his contempt for independent media face that he had with John there. So I just had to...
It also looked like a contempt for being asked a question that he didn't have an answer for. And
I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that I'm lucky enough to be friends with Jordan Sheraton. He watched that video. This was actually my first act of citizen journalism ever. And he was like, okay, you jumped on him. You should have let him talk and hang himself a little bit more. But it's like the task force thing is so old and so obvious.
Right.
It's just like, what do you, and he couldn't even say what he wanted them to do. He couldn't say like, well, I'm hoping we don't have illegal votes in the next election.
Right.
So maybe you should explain what PDI is to people that don't know it.
Well, but let's talk about something else before we get to the PDI, because I think it's important to point out that Rusty does say in that video locations, pertaining to locations. And I think that tells us all we need to know. And that's that, well, he knows what's going on. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said locations, because in the AD 51, now this is the election where they partially vacated the original election because of the proven fraud. One of the points that the appeal was made by the folks that got vacated, there was a second appeal. One of the points they made was that the location was bad. Now, we all have to sort of appreciate the irony of the fact that originally when they picked that location, there were three slates total. The other two slates didn't want this location. And the reason is because it was so far outside on the east side of the district, not in the middle of the district. So it was very difficult for some folks to get to. But when they thought that that was to their advantage, they were fine with it. It wasn't until the second election happened and they lost all of their seats because they didn't cheat that they decided that the location was a problem. So the fact that he says locations, that was a big red flag for me. That said, Rusty's aware of what's going on down in the credentials committee right now. And he's right. And so he's probably not going to address it.
It also tells you which side he was on, because the
absolutely
were the ones screaming about location. Notice in that task force, he said nothing about getting rid of illegal votes. He said nothing about money interest chartering buses to bring people in from outside the district, even though he knows this happened because it's the reason he got elected to be the chair of the party.
He's not going to say that on record, you know.
No.
He's going to be very careful, and it showed him as a corporate politician right there. And Tina, because I want to make sure that we go into your experience in ADM 51.
Sure.
That's such a good example of what John was talking about earlier about the tactics.
Oh, absolutely.
And actually firsthand and reported on.
Yeah, I think that in a weird way, if that hadn't happened, it might not have reached the climax that it did. I also feel like we need to mention that SEIU has sort of bought and paid for Wendy Carrillo, who is our person here in this district, in District 34. And when she was running for office against progressive Dr. Ron Birnbaum, who was running on Medicare for All, she engaged in ballot harvesting here in this district. So, and it was SEIU that was funding that through a company called Groundworks. Oh. So there's definitely all these underlying connections here. And I think a lot of people need to realize that some unions don't support Medicare for All because they use their medical plans as a selling tool to get more members. It's like we have better health care, so come join the union and you'll be part of our better health care. So they've sort of been fighting against that, but that's starting to change. And as their platinum healthcare plans become less platinum, Medicare for All seems like the better tactic, but there's definitely been some pushback from some of these unions. So at 80-50.
Sorry, Tina, I just was going to ask if you could say a little bit more about ballot harvesting and what that is.
Oh, right. So I assume everybody knows what that is now since North Carolina happened, right?
Well, tell us.
In fact, I wrote a piece for this in Washington Babylon 2 years ago, where I talked about the ballot harvesting that was going on in this district because I knew the Republicans would get a hold of this and blow it up and do it much bigger and much badder, which is what they did in North Carolina. So in the state of California, we had a change in our voting rules where it used to say, if you wanted to take a ballot in for somebody that was sick or a disabled family member, it couldn't be just anybody. It had to be somebody that was a caregiver or a family member, right? They changed that law to basically say any person could do it. And when they did that, they really opened the door for ballot harvesting. So now Groundworks, this company, pays canvassers to go door to door and they try to get ballots from people. And they say like, look, I'm canvassing for Wendy Carrillo. If you don't want if you want to vote for her, give me your ballot. I'll make sure that it gets, turned in, sort of a thing.
Are you kidding?
And this is, I'm not kidding. And this is what happened in North Carolina, as you know, to much bigger scales. So, and what they did at the time, and still is perfectly legal because of the way they changed the verbiage in our election law. So point being is there's a relationship here with elected officials and SEIU, and it's very deep and it's very strong. Now, flash forward to the first AD 51 election. I was there covering it. The elected officials were running a slate. Now, many of those slate members are now denying that that was the case, but I don't buy it. That would be a different conversation for a different day. It's a long one.
Printed cards with the people's names on it and said, these would be nice for you to vote for.
Exactly. I mean, and they were all there. Wendy Carrillo was there. Maria was there. So she was even on the bus with the bus that came in. But I was covering folks at the time. I wasn't looking for corruption. I was just thought this would be interesting for people to learn about these ADEM elections because
how it works.
It's something. Exactly. So I was interviewing people that were voting. I was talking to the delegates that were running for office, this sort of thing. But this bus pulled up and these folks started getting off the bus. And I had been standing there during the broadcast. And I said, what part of the district are you from? I'd asked several of them. And one guy didn't want to talk to me. And then another guy didn't want to talk to me, which I thought was strange. Then this woman says, oh, you don't have to talk to her. And I was like, okay, I guess you don't have to, but what's the big deal, right? So finally this guy gets off and he says Studio City. And I was like, well, Studio City is not in the district. That's the San Fernando Valley. Why are you here voting? Then one of the union folks says something to the tune of, well, we're all progressives here. And I was like, hold up. That's not the case. And so I decided to push her a little bit on that. I said, Window Creo doesn't support Medicare for all. Is that progressive? She doesn't support overturning Costa-Hawkins, which is our rent control bill here in the state of California. Is that a progressive position? And the next thing I know, this person came out of nowhere, grabs the camera phone, starts running down the street with it. I went after her to get it back, and she ended up slugging me. So it was kind of wild.
That's progressive.
Yeah, yeah.
The establishment is wilding out there. Anywho, this made me realize, though, that there was more to what was going on there. And I started asking questions. I went in and I talked to the volunteers that were checking in voters. And I came to learn from them that they had stopped signing people in. They had stopped asking where they lived. They were certain that there were people voting that were not registered Democrats and did not live in the district. They were certain of this. Yeah. And it turned out that was actually the case. Janine Roan, who was one of the delegates, took the time to go up to Sacramento and look at the voter sign-in sheets. And there were plenty of ones that were missing signatures, missing addresses. Mm-hmm. Turns out some of them absolutely were not registered Democrats, not living in the district. Mm-hmm. And CADEM had to concede to this, because 97 of them, they could verify that 97 voters definitely should not have been able to cast a vote that day. Yeah. And I think so they partially vacated the election. They protected the top 4 seats. But I think what's really important here is this is something that they don't do. For them to actually partially vacate election, let alone they should have done the whole thing. But this is a big win. I mean, they had to. It's ridiculous that had to be this bad for them to acknowledge that cheating's been going on, and it's been going on for a long time. So
your video at the convention where you discussed that with Maria Estrada's fight, it's really powerful to me, because I happened to tune that in. I was on Twitter and was following your live link. Mm-hmm. And hearing the Democratic Party people argue about how much corruption is acceptable, like how much of the disingenuous vote should we count, was just classic Dem. So back to you.
Yeah, they were legitimately, Pat, you're right. They were legitimately arguing that some corruption was okay as long as it didn't affect the outcome of the election. But there's really no way to tell if that's the case. They were engaging in all kinds of funky math, making assumptions that could not be made if you were being logical, because we simply don't know where those votes went. So they should just be vacating these elections entirely. Mm-hmm. But Pat's right. They were literally arguing, well, a little corruption's okay. So I actually raised my hand at one point and I said, press question. It sounds to me like you're arguing that some corruption is okay, but a lot of corruption is bad. And I need to understand why the party thinks that any corruption whatsoever is acceptable. And I got the you're out of order.
You are out of order.
Yeah. So I just want to jump in.
David yesterday.
I'm sorry, John. I put up this picture of David Atkins from Twitter. Are you guys talking about this whole battle, or is this after?
This is another.
This is another one. I've had several arguments with. So I'll give you the good, bad, and the ugly. David Atkins he oversees the 10th area for the party. And originally, when I started having when I wrote a piece on what happened at 8051 and it was making the rounds, him and I got in a Twitter beef because he was saying that we should not be using PDI. And I said, you're wrong. You're flat out wrong. And he was saying that there was no corruption that happened. I'm like, we have now proven that corruption has happened. Oh, let me go back and mention one thing from the article that I didn't mention that I think is relevant, because it has to do with locations. adjacent to where this election was going on, there was a large field. The place is called East LA Rising. It's like the old Boys and Girls Club. Mm-hmm. So there's a large, I don't know if they play soccer or baseball or something, but some sort of field there. The Teamsters, who were associated with the elected officials slate, had rented out the entire field, thereby not giving access to this area to anybody else. And they're not supposed to do that. That's against the rules. But the convener was denying that this was the case. But I got undercover video of the I don't want to mention her name, the person that runs the facility, let's just say that, saying quite clearly that the Teamsters had rented out the field, that it was theirs, and that she had signed the contract and that nobody else could have access to it, and that they were just going to have to make do being on the sidewalk.
And what were they using the field for?
Oh, you'll love this. So if you voted for the elected official slate, as you were leaving, you were given a little white ticket, and you could take this white ticket into the field and get a free lunch.
Oh.
Yeah.
I know. So hypothetically, you could bus in people from another city that were hungry.
Yeah.
And they would get a white ticket instead for voting for the right person.
Oh, wow.
It's no matter how you slice this, it's very corrupt.
Okay, so we're assuming a lot of ADEMS meetings that happened with in my ADEMS in AD 15, Buffy Wicks rented out the entire cafeteria at the school and was serving free breakfast to people who voted for her slate.
Wow.
So this was and these are all, not allowed.
So I feel like we do need to explain what PDI is, because
back to the.
So PDI is a system that was implemented in Sacramento, which the argument is you should implement it statewide. And it basically checks your voter registration to make sure you're in the district and you're a Democrat and you belong there.
Right.
Simple stuff.
Yeah. It's simple. They were arguing. No, and David Atkins they did it in Sacramento. I have to give a shout out to Karen Bernal, who she's now been termed out, was the head of the Progressive Caucus. She had set up a team to implement test areas for PDI. And Sacramento was successful, Fresno was successful. And I think one of the positive outcomes of using PDI is not only that you prevent election fraud, but they were also able to register a couple of hundred new folks as Democrats. So that's another gain for the party.
Right.
They're now bringing people into the party and having them registered for the general election. How is this bad?
Because they don't want it to be easy and good.
Right. Well, they don't. The elected officials want to retain power. I think this is simply about power dynamics. I don't because there's no other explanation as far as I'm concerned.
So are we saying that this is going on in districts? Are we suspecting this is happening everywhere, or there's different apples? Or
no, I think it's been going on everywhere. I don't think. Even ones we haven't discussed. It would not surprise me if there were people voting in every single ADEM across the state that was not supposed to vote. Wow. I think I can make that claim with certainty, actually.
Yeah,
I think Karen Bernal would agree with me. So
I worked 4 of these elections, not counting the redo in 8051. And on 3 of them, we had pretty positive confirmation that there were people being brought in from outside the district, people who had basically been coached to just fill in the squares they were told to fill in without having any idea what was happening, and including running as delegates. We had people in 88 who it was that the election started at 10 o'clock in the morning, and we had these delegates who showed up that were obviously drunk.
Wow.
They had just been pulled in, and when they were asking questions, they basically said, I have no idea why I'm here. I have no idea what I'm doing, but you're here to fill out a, quote, progressive slate of delegates to run against the actual progressives.
Right, and the slate, just so people know, it's like a cue card, basically, of who to vote for.
Yeah, nicely printed out. Well, that's one thing I noticed when we were pre-gaming the convention and talking about who was running for chair. We saw a printed document that had, half of the page was Rusty Hicks and bullet points and everything. And then was it Daraka and then Kimberly each had a paragraph.
Yeah.
So it was like, so that's a similar thing, right? It's the promo for that, and like, here, this will tell you everything you need to know about know, what you need to do. Okay, all right. So I do want to go into. I know there's no simple answer, and I do want to get some perspectives from the convention from you guys, but I feel like we can't leave this by asking what do we do about this? Folks?
We implement PDI across the state, and I think that's what's going to happen. So the good side of David Atkins is he finally did acquiesce that there was a problem. He was fine letting the election stand with the corruption the way it was. And part of the argument that they made in the credentials committee was that these folks had already paid on their dime to come up to San Francisco, paid for airfare, hotel, whatever, and they didn't want to defrock them for those reasons. I could see both sides of that. But I think going forward, they're realizing that they can't allow this to continue. And part of the problem really is the voters don't trust the party anymore. Right. And the more they engage in this sort of, well, some corruption's okay kind of arguments, the less trust they're building. And they still haven't really, they haven't built all the bridges post 2016. And now we're going into a new presidential primary. And you have a lot of disenfranchised, angry Democrats out there.
Right.
And
are we in a bubble about this?
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just wondering, are we operating in a bubble here? Are people getting more awake to what's going on? Do you think that there is a significant group of people who can make something happen about PDI?
I do. Karen Bernal's been very successful in motivating them. So the fact that David is agreeing that we need to do that is a good thing. And I think there was also Jim, what's the guy on the end? He was arguing for the same thing.
Right.
Is it Jim Justin? I'm thinking his name right now.
He's the guy who wanted to overturn the election, though.
Yeah. So he made a really eloquent speech about, he'd been pretty silent the whole day, and he finally said, I need to say something. And he said what I said basically now. He goes, since when are we a party that's okay with some corruption? Because that's basically what you guys are saying over here. And he said we should be vacating every single one of these elections.
Let's also make clear what corruption they were okay with. The only people who had the means, motive, and opportunity to carry out that level of organized corruption, chartering 4 buses, collecting people from outside the district, were the delegates who won that election. And they know that. And so what they're saying is the people who got elected are the ones responsible for this corruption that we're all just shocked is happening. And we're going to let that stand.
Yeah, there was that. I agree. There was a little bit of that attitude of like, I'm shocked, I'm stunned, but hey, it's already happened. It's water under the bridge. And this is what they do every time.
So people should know that these are the people that vote for policies and endorsements within the party.
It's very important.
People don't know what these people stand for, like the purpose of California Democrats, these CADEM delegates. They vote on how the party runs. And since California has such an impact, we finance the whole DNC.
Right.
Those people, if we could take over CalDems, we can have a huge power nationally. But that's why they're fighting us.
Yeah.
And just to break in, everybody, we've talked a lot about the DPO and Robert's rules and learning to use the rules to take over things. And this is where the California SEC needs to start. They've got to find a couple members who are willing to really scour the bylaws and really call out things at the next quarterly meeting. And we've got to do some planning on that. But it can be done. It's just it's a bigger beast.
Yeah.
And I think there's also just the identifying the deeper problem, which is these people are addicted to Robert's Rules of Order because it protects them. Because
we're out of order.
Raising issues. Yes, and they can point to you and say you are out of order.
Which actually doesn't work. You can make a motion and not be out of order for that. So that's what I'm saying. If you had a second person or somebody to back you, or you called the parliamentarian that said that's bullshit.
True. True.
That's what needs to happen. When somebody says you're out of order and they go, oh, I am? Okay. Then that's not defending your knowledge of parliamentarian rules. Right.
Right.
So.
Right. It's just shutting down the conversation.
Right. Right. Roberta's rules, that could have been stopped. When she pulled that shit and slammed the gavel. Because that wasn't
the gavel down.
Yeah. Yeah. It would have taken somebody that was a member of the committee or somebody to step into that. Yeah. But you're right.
Yeah, because one of the rules they laid down and voted on was only the members of the committee could speak.
Exactly.
Which is fine. I mean, okay, that's only the members of the specific committee, not the assembly itself.
Not the assembly, just the people sitting at the table and in the front rows.
The dais, and then there were some members sitting in the audience too. But,
so somewhere I guarantee you, somewhere in the California bylaws, that's not allowed because your entire assembly is actually the authority of your Democratic Party, and that's in the national laws. So the national bylaws override your local. The nationals say that your assembly is the authority, so you have to assert that authority as the assembly.
Right.
And that's and you can find it in the bylaws that you can't limit this discussion to just the fucking committee. I'm sorry, that's why we're here. But somebody needs to stand up and say, yo.
Somebody needs, I agree. Somebody needs to slap the bitch of the dais with that. I agree.
Yeah. I'll do it.
Great. But no, you can't. You can't because you're not a delegate. You're not a member of the State Central Committee. You can't do that. You can tell them to do that, right? You can help them find the bylaws. And everybody else needs to understand that the reason this is super, super important for Bernie Sanders is because your State Central Committee delegates choose the delegates to the 2020 convention. Okay, that's actually done within a delegate selection plan. And that delegate selection plan is supposed to be run by your rules committee, but it isn't. It wasn't. I guarantee you, your rules committee did not come up with your delegate selection plan, or if they did it in a crooked way, and it has plurality voting in it, and that's going to take away Bernie delegates.
Yeah, because we had caucuses the last round, but it wasn't all of the delegates.
Right. It's, and if you're saying they know the rules, that they use Robert's rules, then that's even scarier, John, because then they might have everything locked down. That's going to be a tough battle.
Well, they know what they're doing.
Yeah. They know it well enough to know that somebody else doesn't, and then pull something like you're out of order when you might not actually be. But you have to be able to come back citing line and verse of Robert's rules to explain why you are not out of order.
Right, and you have to have a couple people to back you. Right.
Who wants to talk about what plurality voting is?
We'll get into that in a second. I just want to make some. We got some great comments from the audience, and I want to just bring them out. Craig Robb says maybe Nate's liver can do it. So I don't know if Pat can't do it. Maybe
I'm fully up for getting arrested. Whatever.
This could use some emotional math. I think that would.
I second that.
To do with this.
I second that.
Yeah.
I'll get a GoFundMe going for bail.
Yeah.
And Mel just went, this is a great question that I just have overall for the feel of the convention. And she's basing it on when they announced that Rusty Hicks had won. But I just want to know overall, what was your feel of the progressive movement there? I mean, were they booing the fuck out of that decision? Was it, were we present? Were we bigger than we were in 2016? You know what I mean?
It was different from 2016. That's a really good question. It was different because 2016 you had, so Eric Bauman, the guy, does everybody know the background on this guy? He's now leaving the party in disgrace. He's got, 11, 12 sexual harassment claims against him at this point. But there was a very cantankerous fight the last time, and it was against Kimberly Ellis as well. Eric Bauman literally was like flipping off the progressives.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was, I think it was a little bit closer, but this time we had that third guy that was running. So he took a big chunk of those votes. I think might have maybe gone to Kimberly. I'm not sure. But
he's the one who was the vice chair, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was the vice. Yeah.
So he had a legitimate. He wasn't just some guy off the street, but definitely that. I thought it was weird that there was three main contenders, and obviously one who was the anointed one.
Well, so obvious that Rusty was put in there to make sure nobody more progressive won. It was just
exactly.
Yeah. It's really frustrating for me because I'm a lifetime union member, and I'm an uber leftist, obviously, and it's frustrating to me to see so often that union leadership, and including in my union, isn't really leftist, and people just automatically kind of assume that all union people are the good guys. But no, I mean, we've got corruption in our unions, and I'm going to implore every other union member out there to keep looking at their own leadership in their union and make sure that hold them to their feet to the fire. Make sure that they're doing things that are in the best interest of workers' rights. We can talk about the last election cycle. SEIU endorsed Hillary Clinton, who was like 13 might be okay. Over Bernie Sanders, it was saying 15 or higher.
Right.
I mean, how do you explain that?
Money.
All right,
money.
You know what I'm saying?
Dolores
obviously they're not.
Yeah,
They're not-
exactly, Dolores. Yeah.
Right,
Sorry.
but this is obviously these policies aren't in the best interest of their workers. The better policy is 15, fight for 15, right? So why would SEIU do that? It's fucking insane. But here we
But
are.
supporting those candidates are in the best interest
Am I allowed to
of
cuss?
the leaders
I
of the
think I am.
union.
Oh, yes, you are.
Okay, I just realized I'm like,
And you're right, John. Supporting them is in the best interest. But so just back to the real question, though. What was the overall? Did it? I mean, I'm looking at the web, and in my bubble, I'm seeing progressive, massive. It was an awesome progressive onslaught in the CADEM. Was it? Or is that just what I'm?
oh, it was. I mean, I'm going to call it the Bernie rolling wave. You could literally tell what room Bernie was at any given moment because you could hear the screaming, the cheering, the chants for Bernie. I mean, there was more than once where I was covering some boring thing that needed to be covered, and I'd be like, "Oh, 3 doors down, Bernie's in there right now," you know. So
Right, the whole event, there were a lot of people out of order for clapping for Bernie.
yeah.
Craig Robb. This is
Yeah,
like
and look,
Twitter on video
John
for me.
John Delaney, Donnelly, what do we call the guy now?
Joe Dimley, I don't know.
One of the booed.
He quite literally got booed off the stage
Yeah.
for saying Medicare for all should not happen.
Yeah.
Oh, let's run that.
That was beautiful. We've got that. Let's.
Oh yeah, run it.
Yeah.
He walked by me with one person. Like, you're at this convention. Like,
Yeah,
one
right.
person.
At the Veterans Caucus, yeah, he came in. Tulsi had come in with a group of people and got a lot of love. Bernie rolled in with Dr. Cornel West and Danny Glover, and that was like off the chain.
Yeah.
And then he came. Oh, and then Amy came in with her comb and,
And her salad.
and her salad.
She heard there'd be salad.
Oh my gosh! All right,
Right.
you guys want to hear it?
Okay,
Here,
yeah,
I've got
please,
both of
yeah.
the booed. We've got Frackenlooper and Delaney. So here's Delaney.
We should have universal health care. We should have universal health care. We should have universal health care, but it shouldn't be a kind of health care that kicks 150 million Americans off their health care. That's not smart policy. I want everyone to have health care, but it's got to be a plan that works for every American.
That was
So I never saw the end of that. So did he literally just leave the stage then?
Oh yeah, you guys, you cut it off too soon.
Well, that's all the only clip I
he
had.
got booed. He got booed like off the stage. But
Yeah.
part of what he's saying was so ridiculous because he's saying it's going to throw people off insurance. Well,
Yeah.
fucking A, no kidding, buddy.
the
It's
whole
universal
point.
health care. We don't need the insurance anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
it was just a dumb statement.
Yeah, can I get off my insurance and have health coverage? That's nice. Let's do that.
I
yes.
really love writing a check for $1,200
Like, it was-
a month.
It was a really dumbass remark, I have to say. He deserved to get booed off the stage.
Yeah. Well, he takes money. I think he takes money from the healthcare industry. So there's that. And he's
Yes.
And one,
it is 200 millionaire. You know. So
But
Exactly.
In
there's one very
2016, that was a
important
winning
thing to
message. That's the only point. That was Hillary's message, essentially. So he got booed for sharing Hillary's message at the
Right.
CADEM convention.
I like that.
So it's a positive. I mean, you have to look at it that way.
yeah. John, what are
agree.
you going to say?
and we do have to note that as of today afternoon, John Dunning-Kruger Delaney was still whining about this.
Oh, he's doubling down and just people about it. You know.
He was still whining
went full
about this on
Dunning-Kruger?
social media. Yeah.
Oh.
I just can't believe how butthurt he is that the peasants dared to disagree with him.
Right.
Oh yeah, that was my thing.
Oh, very, yeah. This is your tweet.
That was a couple days ago. He's
Yeah.
still doing it. I mean,
He's there to make
Medicare for all are.
Biden look like a Democrat.
Wow, what a job.
There you go.
Simone couldn't do
And
it.
that's actually kind of a hard job, let's be honest.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So can I
Yeah.
just say something? I just heard you say Simone, John, and I was talking to John the other night. It's like, so Biden wasn't there. Simone Sanders was there. Ostensibly, I saw some. Oh, she's there representing him. I
Poor
did a
girl.
Google search of her name and CADEM 19 the hashtag. 5 tweets. Mostly
That's
from
it.
her and Cristobal and that poor woman that they got to endorse Biden. and nothing on Sunday. It was all at the beginning, and then a little group shot of their small group. And then I just read today, well, it's because she wasn't even at the convention more than a short period of time.
I never saw her.
See her? Yeah, she was out. She was out meeting with the bundler people and arranging for the fundraisers that they're going to be throwing throughout the year in California, deciding who's going to do what. So that's what Simone Sanders did. I mean, the tweet that I put out was that as if Biden is truly the front runner, Simone Sanders would be, the queen coming in to represent him, as if Biden showed up and was truly the front runner, he would have been greeted like Bernie was if he was.
We vote in Super Tuesday. To act like this is not important is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, that was just my little. I just thought that was really interesting that she made so little of an effort as a surrogate, as little of an effort as he made. Either they are really scared, or they really just don't think they need to worry about it because they are meeting with the big money. But
I think on a certain level, I think he has only something to lose. If he shows up at the California Democratic Party convention and says ridiculous things about the Hyde Amendment, about Medicare for all, they know he's going to get booed off the stage the way Dunning-Kruger Delaney, what are we calling him now?
Yeah, I like that.
Who cares?
Right. Okay. So, in their mind, they probably think like not making appearances better. But I will say this, November is not that far away. So when everybody comes back in November to Long Beach, I would be surprised if Biden wasn't here.
Yeah. He said he's going to be coming back in November. He'll definitely, if he makes it that far. So what other highlights do you want to share? We've got a couple of things lined up. We've got Jane Sanders' speech. We've got a video, I think, of Bernie being welcomed. What stands out to you, and what would you like to tell us about? Anything?
Anyone?
Yeah, who wants to go first?
So I went to the Bernie fundraiser, which is late at night afterwards.
Oh, yeah.
Saturday. And it was really nice seeing.
Good.
It was nice seeing laid back Bernie, laid back Cornell. I keep doing I want to KFC him. It's terrible.
Yeah, Colonel.
I'm racist as fuck. I apologize.
Well, it's also Sanders is pulling you in there.
Yeah, it's right. I blame you. I've said Tina.
Me?
I've said Tina.
I'm innocent.
Turner. I've said Tina Turner a million times since our weekend.
Yeah.
Somehow my brain is fried, but
that is a pretty close.
That's why I'm Peter Douche, not an actual journal.
Yeah.
Don't let your emotional math get in the way, man.
Yeah, emotional math needs it. At the after thing, the fundraiser thing, they were so much more of their personality shine through, and so much more of how they are feeling about the campaign shine through. Bernie's in front of just regular people. Press weren't allowed to film at the event.
Right.
A lot of regular people just got clips. You might have
like cameras out. Yeah.
Yeah, but press was not allowed to film at the thing.
Which I get.
Yeah, but Bernie's talking about marijuana in California, and California's like, California, you guys with your marijuana laws, it's legal here. I get that. I haven't smoked pot. And he pauses for a long time and he says, today.
Yeah. So he really did say that? He really did say that?
Yeah. So,
That's awesome.
That's just the lighthearted part of it. But they were all on such a crazy schedule. Nobody my age can, 10 people out of 100 could sustain Bernie's schedule. Yeah, and here he is at this after party. You have to go from San Jose to San Francisco, back to this thing and that thing.
I was at the San Jose rally, and
that's right.
They know he's going to finish his speech at 6:15, so we all had to be waiting in the volunteer area for him to come out. And he stopped. And he thanked the band, and then he came up and he spoke to us for a measured point, took the picture, and then he was in his car driving away at 6:30 because he had to come up there for the fundraiser, which just started at 6. So it's like, and everyone's going, well, how can he be in two places at once? I was like, well, he enters later. But
and he didn't just go to the fundraiser. He went to the Veterans Caucus, and he went to 3 events at the actual convention, and then went to the.
And in the morning, he did that. Didn't he do that Move On Big Ideas forum in the morning? Right?
Wow.
Yeah.
It's the same day. So he was. He's amazing.
He is amazing.
Yeah. And Biden can't do that.
No. He's got amazing amounts of energy.
Yeah.
That's why when people bring up his age, I'm like, have you seen Bernie?
Yeah.
Yeah. What have you done today? Huh?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Let's listen to him diss Biden, because why not?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right, here.
No, there is a debate among presidential candidates who have spoken to you here in this room and those who have chosen, for whatever reason, not to be in this room. About the best way forward. So let me be as clear as I can be. In my view, we will not defeat Donald Trump unless we bring excitement and energy into the campaign. And unless we give millions of working people and young people a reason to vote and a reason to believe that politics is relevant to their lives.
Yeah.
That was such a great speech.
That was really good. And I love the sign language gal with her whole thing. I heard that she had a very different demeanor when she was doing Delaney or Klobuchar or something like that, kind of. But I didn't see. Never got to see the side by side. I meant to look that up.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I'd love to have seen that.
Let's do the Tina's video of Jane Sanders.
Well, I honestly, it's a really long video. I wasn't really sure what to play, but it's just Jane hanging out. And so, I mean, what did you want me to play?
Yeah, so she was at the Bernie Kratz dinner. I think they were at that point trying to divide and conquer. That particular night, I could have had like 5 camera guys with me in different rooms at different moments trying to catch everything that was going on because it was just a crazy night. So this was in between the credentials meeting. So we had just done the 8051. That went late. We went over to the Bernie Kratz dinner, caught a little bit of that, went back to see Maria Estrada's thing. So Bernie at that time was doing all the caucuses. Mm-hmm. And so she was at the Bernie Kratz dinner with Jane Kim, who also gave a phenomenal speech at the Progressive Caucus.
I love Jane.
I'm going to have to find these and put these up. You did you record them? Did you have them on your Periscope?
I do. If anybody wants to watch any of these speeches, they're on my Periscope. Yeah, in full.
Okay, I will drop that in the chat.
I should have some links in the description for these folks. I think I put their Twitters in there. A question from Jeff Pearson. Can you discuss how Maria Estrada was mistreated regarding her time slot? I'm not familiar with...
Oh, yeah.
Well, it just, they didn't start her thing until like 9:30 at night. And
yeah, they were supposed to finish up in the afternoon.
Right. So it was, which is why we had to get back. We didn't stay at the Bernie Kratz dinner. I didn't get a full dinner that night because I didn't want to miss Maria's thing. And in fact, as we were leaving the Bernie dinner, we saw her standing on the street corner. So we popped her. She was waiting for a car. We grabbed her and put her in our car and took her back to the convention center. True story. But God, that was just... the whole Maria Estrada meeting was very messy. The Rendon people actually came into the room and they were lined up along a wall and they were trying to be intimidating. That was really obvious from the get-go. There had been 7 or 8 of these guys that came in and they kept chiming in with their snarky remarks. And at one point, one of these white guys called Maria a racist. And I was just like, wow, that's...
Yeah.
Like, white dude says what? Look, even if you wanted to think that maybe she has some prejudice against certain groups, she's not a racist. Like, you're the white guy. You're part of the systemic racism that's in control in this country. You have no fucking business telling any woman of color that they're a racist. It's just fucked up. Yeah. But this happened.
They called her a racist and went back to painting her as a crazy Latina.
Yeah, one of them even had a sheet of paper that they had taken old tweets from her Twitter account. And I had seen one of them and I knew she was being sarcastic in it. She's like, well, I'm just going to bus in people from Compton now to vote it. You could tell she was using that. She was being sarcastic to try to point out how ridiculous.
But, and let's be very clear about what side the committee was on. Laura Laramendi was there. David Atkins was there. The other dude who I just called Captain Combe-Over was there. And he was, and every one of them, part of the reason that it ran over and Maria had to do this late night slot was that they just filibustered for the first 40 minutes of the meeting in the beginning. But when they got there, they showed these social media messages, which were obviously sarcastic and in reaction to the fact that Rendon was bussing in these illegal voters. And the committee took that and does what these shitlibs always do, is they did the most bad faith, uncharitable reading of this and said Maria was the only one who was organizing illegal voters. And then
which is so ridiculous.
And what you're showing is David Atkins. We had a long Twitter exchange yesterday.
Yes, you did.
Well, the thing is, he was saying
when you get John going, he's like, it's great.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, you guys.
I'm glad John's on my side.
There's an interesting question from Ermelinda. Thank you. How did Bernie do in the African American caucus? He heard that there was some drama. Did you heard anything?
I was in the credentials, so I didn't see it.
Anybody hear anything?
That was the night that I needed like 5 cameramen. So we were covering this. I thought the credentials, the ADEM stuff was really important, and there was nobody covering this stuff. So we chose to prioritize that. So my apologies.
Okay. Oh no, we did. You weren't. You couldn't be everywhere. So Ermelinda, sorry, we can't. But I
have this that he was surrounded by white people in the Latino caucus.
Yeah.
Which is another piece of sarcasm. If anybody's out there from the establishment, there is sarcasm. We need to teach you how that works.
People don't understand irony.
We do. Yeah. We need to teach them what sarcasm is.
And I heard nothing but good things about Bernie's appearance at the Latino caucus. I didn't hear any of his appearance at the African American caucus. I heard these guys operate. These white guys who are in the assembly will get their Black and Latino staffers to go to these meetings and pretend that Bernie isn't popular among African Americans or Bernie isn't popular among Latinos. This is the identity politics that they tried in 2016.
Well, what I was impressed with was Bernie was the first presidential candidate to ever address the Arab American caucus.
Yep.
And in San Jose, there was it was the Muslim American group that came in, and they brought dates for him to break fast with Bernie.
Nice.
And it was a really, really, really lovely group that was there. So I was impressed. So we haven't heard about that. So what else? I
want to show you guys this. I thought this was kind of funny. I've been seeing pictures of crowd sizes. This, I was looking up, just stuff going on. This apparently you guys were in Kamala Harris country. Did you know that? Kamala country. I didn't.
Oh God! The press lanyards had Kamala Harris on him. The Kamala for the people.
Really, Brandon Kamala.
We refused to use them. There was a builders conference going on next door. We took one of their lanyards instead.
Yeah, nice.
I saw lots of people doing creative things with bumper stickers and wrapping them around to cover it up. But is that Rob Bonta that's standing there with Kamala Harris?
I don't know.
I think it says I can't see it's not quite big. I know that guy.
But what I'm showing you now is the crowd of the rally before the convention for Bernie.
Wow.
So if it's really Kamala country, I don't believe you. Just going to say.
Yeah.
That's fucking huge.
I don't think Kamala's going to win her own state. That's my prediction.
Running third right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's impressive.
Look, she's never recovered from her stance on involuntary servitude. She's never recovered from her stance on, the truancy, the poor parents that she decided she should put in jail, which is absolutely insane. Yeah. So she's made a lot of choices. Not prosecuting Steve Mnuchin's another one. She's made a lot of choices, and Californians aren't happy about it.
And the coverage of that generated my favorite headline of the year. Which was something along the lines of Kamala has yet to lock up all of California.
Right. She hasn't won 9.9% of the vote yet.
And I was just like, oh.
Wait, whose headline was that? That's hysterical. And I'm assuming they didn't get the irony of that. Politico. It had to be Politico.
It was just San Francisco Chronicle.
Oh shit! Yeah.
I was trying to think of the reporter's name. Yeah, it was Joe. He was generally a good guy, and
that's funny.
Himself was pretty balanced, but it was the Chronicle's overriding assumption that California's going to go for Vermont.
That is so funny.
That's so good. John, do you have that video of Pelosi's speech where they started chanting?
I might. Let me take a look at I might have that. I have a question from, where'd it go? Who asked? And H. What do you all think of Warren's big rally in Oakland? I had no idea she had one. Did we know?
She did. And it was like 6,500 people, which is like 3 times larger than Bernie's, twice as large as Bernie's rally in San Jose.
Well, I stand corrected. Holy shit.
Yeah, no, it was in Oakland. I was really surprised too.
To put it into perspective, Bernie's last rally in Oakland had 65,000 people there.
65,000?
Yes.
Oh,
okay. The big
there.
last one? Okay.
Okay. Yeah. And during the last election, because he hasn't spoken up there yet.
During the last election, but he'll go into Oakland. He's incredibly popular in Oakland.
Okay.
I've yet to meet a Lyft driver who isn't pulling for Bernie. I mean,
we heard that a lot with our Lyft all weekend.
Yeah.
All right. So this was
still
just.
think Warren still has some support in the state, though.
Oh no, I think she's got the Hillary. We want a woman. I know that most of my coworkers who were Hillary supporters now are very pro Warren.
You told me they're putting stuff on your tables, right?
Oh my God, there's a thing. I'm not going to go there. But it's the Kamala Harris supporters are the mean girls, though. Just from what I've run into. So I did want to ask. So to round this out, what was your perception of Tulsi's impact at the convention? And did you see her at all or hear her speak?
She gave a phenomenal speech at the Veterans Caucus.
I would expect.
Which would be expected, right?
And just solid answers to all their questions.
Solid answers, yeah. One of the things she talked about was creating a peace department. She talked a lot about being against anti-regime change. She talked about bringing the deported veterans back home. I don't know if a lot of people realize this, but we've been deporting veterans of war because they're not citizens. So as far as I'm concerned, if you serve in our military and you go to Iraq and you fight, you're a citizen. Like, how is this even up for fucking debate? But This has been going on. So she talked a little bit about the plight of the deported veterans that she's like, just bring them home.
Yeah.
I thought it was a really solid speech. She talked about how our military has become the military for Saudi Arabia, and that when our men and women sign up to become servicemen in the country, that they don't sign up to do that, but they sign up to defend, America and not corporate values abroad that are. So she got she had a really good answer. She had a great answer on Venezuela. John Dunning-Kruger Delaney, what do we call this guy?
Oh, he was terrible.
He got some smack in the Veterans Caucus as well, because he was sort of arguing for the Trojan horse approach to Venezuela, where they need the humanitarian aid, and that's how we're going to get in. And the veterans weren't going to have that. So I think. Pat and John were in that room too. They could probably speak a little bit on this too, but I thought she was great in Veterans Caucus.
She was the best speaker, and Bernie was there too. I thought Bernie did very well within Tulsa.
Yeah. Well, he had Cornell with him, so.
Delaney also got pushback when he was talking about a path to citizenship, and Klobuchar also said that a path to citizenship for the veterans that we forcibly deported.
Right. It's like
path to citizenship is go charter some buses and go down to Mexico and bring those guys home.
Exactly. I mean, my God. Path to wasn't that a path to citizenship when they fought for this fucking country overseas? Are you kidding me? I mean, it's mind-numbing to me.
And Klobuchar was just a non-entity. Does anybody remember a salient point that she made?
No, but I thought she threw a stapler at you.
I was going to ask, did she hurt anybody?
Thinking about it, I was within stapler range, so I asked Tina for hazard pay. She promised to double my salary for the weekend.
Right.
I want to remember a lot of people saying you're out of order for cheering for Bernie. Well, she was about to come up and speak.
Yeah, that's true.
Klobuchar.
That's true.
I was about to die here. If I leave, I love you guys. It's not personal.
Oh, that's all right. I was wondering what you were doing.
The plug's got some shorts somewhere, but anyway, carry on.
You look good for now. What did you say? You were told you couldn't cheer for Bernie during Klobuchar? What did you say?
Well, they were. You were
out of order.
In the crowd, like out of order. I don't know, Robert's Rules of Order, whatever it is, to not be enthusiastic about your Democratic.
You're cheering for the wrong team there, Pat. Jeez.
Right.
You didn't get the memo.
In the defense, the guy that was gaveling them to order is a huge Bernie supporter.
Is he really?
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
he is.
So he was trying, I think he was overcompensating and trying to be very fair and not show any bias.
Okay.
Right.
Just a message to all Bernie people: we don't get to be nice this time. We don't have any room for that. We have to be assholes.
agree.
I mean, I don't mean that in like a bad way. We got to be a little tougher this time, really.
Well, so that reminds me of a video I shared of the after party where it was open to the public to come and support Bernie, and I filmed Ben from Ben and Jerry's and Cornel West, and Cornel West said, "Hey, brother Biden, you say you're the most progressive. You're on the symbolic. Get off
the symbolic crack pipe.
Yeah, get off.
Yeah. It was great. It was great.
And so that's getting shared around by centrist Twitter as some sort of like tone deaf, racist, drug policy.
We have a slide on that, I think.
Non-unity thing.
I don't
here, once
have
again, we have can I just point out that you're right, they're doing this. And I was like, Dr. Cornel West, you're going to call him a racist? Again, what is with these white people?
Yeah,
right.
you got Tom Watson, who's whiter than my whitest acid, it's whitest all year, telling black people that Cornel West is out of line.
Oh, well, he's awful, Tom Watson.
He is awful.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. That's a whole new low for whites.
But this is the MO of these guys. They do it all the time.
It is the MO.
Anytime you simply mention a race or ethnicity, you are called out immediately. This is what happened to Maria Estrada. She was talking about people who were clearly had no fixed address and were non-citizens who were voting, and they were all over her because they wanted to distract from their corruption by making her look like a racist.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is ridiculous. You really think Maria Estrada, who is a Latina, is talking about illegal immigrants when she said illegal vote? Like, it was just bullshit. And the fact that this was coming from a white male was just like, really, dude?
Yeah.
I really do hear him a lot.
Yeah, it's.
Well, I just don't understand what it is with these guys that they think every group is completely the same in the way they think. Like, they're not allowed to have any sort of individual agency or individual opinions. Like, the minute they go off the reservation, which is the reservation that they think that they put them on, right? That in their white minds, it's just fucking remarkable to me. It's like more racist than anything else. It's like, why don't you take a moment and have a conversation with these folks and learn something about how they think, what they feel, who they are?
But by saying that, you're being racist, Tia. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Unity.
Yeah, unity. This has been a phenomenal conversation, and I think what we need to do is agree to do it again, because this is an ongoing story. We got more to talk about here, and I really appreciate you all being on. Who wins California?
Bernie.
All of you? Is it Bernie?
By a hair.
By a hair? You think so?
Or who gets the most delegates?
All right, let's go with that one.
Yeah, two different conversations.
That's a good question. Depends on what we do with the California Democratic Party and their state central committee. Right? Well, thank you all for reporting on it, and I hope to have you back again to do more of this.
Great.
Absolutely. Get Maria on here.
Yeah, I want to bring Maria
you
back.
should get Maria on there. And also, I would recommend getting Javanka Beckles on.
Oh,
too.
I'd love to.
Ivanka and Pamela Price.
Well,
they gave I know you played around, but they gave two of the best speeches at the Progressive Democrats of America. Phenomenal. Full of fire.
Those two women are
fire.
Just amazing.
Amazing, yeah.
Well, I would love to bring Laura. You're the one.
I'm writing it down. No, but I would love to do this on the regular. Every couple weeks or whatever. We'll do this and just follow this story. But I really wanted to get all this in one place where we could kind of get a perspective of kind of what's going on, not just the convention, but how we got here. So super, super big thank you for kind of painting the picture from your firsthand experience. There went Pat. What happened? Oh, uh-oh.
Well, it's because that's the cam.
When one drops out, it messes up the shot.
That's now my Louis, my dog starts barking.
Yeah. That must be time to end the show. But from your firsthand experience, that's what we really value, and your honest perspectives of what you observed. And
Yeah.
Thank you. We will do this again. We've code named ourselves the Raucous Caucus in our communications.
Yeah.
Nothing official. There's lots of raucous caucuses I found when I Googled it, but we're one.
It is.
But thank you. And thank you. How many people we've had 40, 50 people watching there. So
we did. We had a lot of people.
Yeah, and I have a whole lot of mentions in my Twitter. So thank you, everybody who is watching.
And I just want to give the parrots here props for not disrupting the video this time.
Yes,
that was fantastic. And forgive my guys, I'm doing a terrible job with the shots because it really did mess up everything when he dropped out. It's just bouncing everywhere, and I wasn't prepared for that.
Okay,
it's been
do we have a song? We didn't talk about a song.
No, we have a song, everybody. So we're going out.
Yes.
Marcus, of course, chooses the music when I ask him to. He's very nice, and he picked the Dead Kennedys. I think this really works for what happened. It's California über alles. There's so much symbolism in there, and so we're gonna go out with this. I think it fits the mood, and I really want to thank Pat Cote and Desiree Berg and. I can't remember John Graziano. For being here. The technology that we had to pack together to make this work just for this evening, all of a sudden was just great. And understand that this is independent media, everybody. So we're not running on a $20 million Katzenberg budget. We're running on less than $500 a month, and it all comes from you. And this is run out of a garage. Everybody here is at their home. This is a Zoom call running through Livestream Studio production software. And if you'd like to see more of it, if you'd like to see it with better production and less problems, then donate to independent media, because we're the ones bringing you the truth. You didn't hear this on CNN. Wolf Blitzer isn't talking about the California Democratic primary or Democratic convention, right? So thank you, everybody, for being here as Dead Kennedys, and we will do this again, I promise. This was fun.
Right.
Will control you, 100% natural.